What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. Sean Woodland and Tommy Marquez here with you. Lauren Khalil's taking the evening off. It's late on the East Coast. She's
it is.
been working hard. Tommy and I are recording at night here, and you're going to have to pardon us if we're a bit distracted. Game 6 of the World Series is on right now as we're recording this. It's in the bottom of the 8th, and the Yankees have 2 on with 1 out, and they're down by 1. So I'm biting my nails a little bit here. End this now.
My God.
End this now, Dodgers. We're officially on Baby Watch 2024. What's the latest, Tommy?
Well, tomorrow is the due date. We had the 40-week appointment today.
Okay.
I think anyone who knows me and Tiff will not be surprised that it's most likely going to be late.
Accurate. Yes.
At least that's where we're at right now, and everything's still looking good. Baby's healthy, mom's healthy, but it just where it's sitting high, it seems like there's no immediacy in it, which is on brand for both of us. And I'm thinking we're gonna have ourselves a November baby for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I hope everybody's doing well. I know you're prepared. We'll continue Baby Watch 2024 next week as we get ready for the Rogue Invitational. And we're gonna talk a little bit about that today. We are going to talk about some of the things that have been going on social media, some posts that have turned some heads and made a little news. And then we're going to also be speaking, Tommy and Lauren sat down earlier this week with the defending Rogue Invitational Strongman champion and friend of the show, Mitch Hooper. So looking forward to hearing that interview. Mitch is a great guy. We had a chance to actually just sit down with him informally in Wodapalooza, SoCal. He was at the same, I think like acai / smoothie place, and invited us over to his table. We got to sit down. He's a great guy. So looking forward to hearing that conversation with him. But before we do that, want to thank our presenting sponsor for today. That is Thirdsy. If you guys want to improve your sleep and recovery, you want to check out Thirdsy. It has, it's melatonin free, which is nice. So it's not habit forming. It has GABA, L-theanine, magnesium, ingredients that are included to help calm your central nervous system and promote deep and restorative sleep. When you take this stuff, you're going to get to sleep faster. You're going to sleep better, and you're going to wake up feeling like you're ready to go. That's one of my big problems when I don't get enough sleep. But when I do wake up, I'm like, I don't want to get up. But with Thirdsy, I actually feel pretty energized. And my sleep is much more restorative than it is without Thirdsy. I actually experimented the other night, had a little adult beverage late at night. My wife and I were up doing stuff for my son's Halloween party that we were hosting here. So we were up, inflating balloons and doing all kinds of stuff, and decided I had a little wobbly pop, and I said, you know what, I'm going to forego the Thirdsy, and it made a difference. It made a big difference. So check out Thirdsy, Thirdsy.com. The code is TEF. You'll save 20%, and you will immediately A, thank us, and B, improve your sleep and your recovery. And Tommy, I know you got the Thirdsy packed in the emergency hospital baby bag.
It is. I got 3 of the to-go packs that I'm going to bring with me because I know I'm most likely going to need it. And let's just hope it gives me some better dreams than the ones I posted on social media.
That was really good, by the way. That was well played. I felt bad for you, but I'm glad that you could have a little laugh at yourself. At the expense of your favorite team, which. They got to figure that out, man. What is going on in Dallas? Come on. That team is
just bad.
Too good to be playing that way.
Oh, the play calling's, they've leveraged all their money in certain places.
Too much talent.
Yeah, too much talent.
All right.
It honestly, it hurts that if you looked at like realistically who are our 4 best players. 2 of them have been out for a significant time.
Yeah, what's up with Micah Parsons? Now we're getting off on a tangent, but he got hurt, right?
High ankle sprain, man. It's like you never know, and especially for someone that lives on the edge like that. And then DeMarcus Lawrence has been on the IR. He's our run stopper. He sets the edge. He's been all pro multiple times. Yeah, just tough. So I knew what was coming Sunday. They gave me a little bit of hope.
Oh, I thought I picked them. I thought they're gonna win. I'm like, this is it. They're turning it around right here.
Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah. Then they did the deal. That's how that turned out. But, they came back in the end, kind of made it interesting there at the end. But, all right, let's get into our headlines. So first thing we talk about, this is a post that, if you saw it, this is it. If you saw it, you may have went, what? This is from Jay Crouch, and it is a picture of Jay Crouch, Maddie Sturt, Tia Toomey, and Ricky Garrard. And all that Jay wrote as a caption is 2025, which led a lot of people to immediately start reacting. Oh my God, this team's going to win everything. All these people are going team. Well, it turns out that's not the case. It was just sort of speculation, but it was fun to talk about for a couple minutes.
It was, and I can confirm that they were just goofing.
Mm-hmm.
They were just kind of, yanking the chain, or I don't know, whatever kind of funny Aussie saying that they have, leashing the dog or something. I don't know. I feel like Jeremy Austin's probably got like 3 to 4 really funny sayings that are parallels to that. But I just really enjoyed the comments. Brandon Swan's
yeah.
gif of Grandpa Simpson.
Just the whole
fantastic. Oh man. I mean, and I'm not going to lie, that would be just a cracker of a team.
And here's the reason why. Now, this is before I talked to anybody or anything like that. Someone just sent this to me and I saw it. I was like, oh man, that's crazy. Is because at least for Tia Toomey, it makes sense. This is the same thing that we saw Rich Froning do. I have nothing left to prove as an individual. I still want to compete. She's a mother now, allows her to not train as intensely and still be able to compete at a high level. So to me, that kind of made sense for her.
It was one of those things where you could kind of wrap your head around it a little bit for Tia, but the canary in the coal mine for like, this has to be a joke for me was Ricky, just because, obviously like Jay and Maddie, have done tremendous work in the Australian community from the individual side of things. Obviously Jay has been on the team with Reebok CrossFit Frankston back in the day. That was Rob Forte's gym. Obviously, like they're in a relationship, so it would make sense that they could pick, this would be attractive to them. And the idea of maybe like winning a title would be cool because both Jay and Maddie are both still very young and have some good individual years ahead of them. And Maddie just got back on the individual side to the games. But Ricky feels like there's unfinished business, you know?
Yeah. That was the one that really shocked me. The other 3, I was like, okay, I can absolutely, like you said, I can see that.
Yeah. And like, it would be really cool to bring home a team title and, for that region in a scenario where it's not like it was at this year's games,
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
But
anyway, that turned some heads and it turned out to be a false alarm, but it was still something fun to talk about.
It was, it's like it's like, it sucks when a kid pulls the fire alarm at school, but you do get to see how some people react to a crisis.
That is true.
And I feel like we saw some reactions like,
they were good.
Oh Lord, we woke the mama. Like, okay.
Yeah.
But which was fun for a little bit.
That's a good analogy. Well, okay. Other thing we got going on right now that was announced is that after the Rogue Invitational in Dubai, we sort of reset the season with Wodapalooza and in Miami Beach. And Wodapalooza put out this video that we're watching right now, and the caption is, after a legendary 12-year run in Bayfront Park, we're taking our talents, reference to LeBron, to South Beach to continue our celebration of fitness, community, and life. The iconic city of Miami Beach and its sandy beaches will serve as the new backdrop to your favorite fitness festival. We thank the Miami Beach administration for welcoming and supporting our 13th celebration and beyond. And we're just getting started as the online qualifier registration opens on Monday. So that's this coming Monday. We've got more big news coming soon. Stay tuned. So, and you got a little actually insight from Dylan Malitsky on this.
Yeah. And for one, they get credit for, the announcement, LeBron one. That was well played for their social media crew. But, this is a development that was actually pursued a little bit by Miami Beach. Like the city of Miami Beach courted them to potentially move over. And I will say this kind of, we've made some parallels to another big event, the Ultra Miami Music Festival, which has been in Bayfront Park for years. We drew parallels there with Wodapalooza and how that setup was and how they're able to manage the crowds. But Ultra did make a move out of Bayfront Park because they felt like they had kind of tapped out their potential at Bayfront. And I do kind of feel like that is a bit of the case for Wodapalooza, at least for the time being. It felt like this is kind of I don't want to say a necessary move, but a move that is going to benefit the event. Just kind of like refreshing it a little bit. It's you kind of tapped out in terms of like spectator experience. The seating has always been an issue with the amount of seating, the amount of visibility. What are you going to do with VIP? How do you make it better? And are you sacrificing something for the spectacle a little bit? Now I think you get to hit a reset by moving to Miami Beach, and there are some advantages to it moving there. One being it's going to be literally on the beach, very similar to how Huntington Beach was for Waza SoCal, which I think could provide a really cool backdrop to that event being an all-day type event.
Yeah.
Miami Beach is much more walkable, and I think tourist, spectator, traveler friendly than downtown Miami is.
Yeah.
In that particular area, because once you get off of Bayfront Park and you're in the midst of the skyscrapers, kind of hectic. Usually a lot of people who are in Airbnbs and everything like that have to stay a little bit further away anyways. And parking around there can be a mess. It's not the most tourist friendly area. There's going to be, and this is directly from them, just kind of talking to some of the folks at Wodapalooza. They're going to have more space for seating at every single stage, which is has been a huge, that's been a really big issue for them and something they've been trying to address. It's going to be a little bit longer footprint, which I think spreads things out, kind of sprawls out on some of those sections of Miami Beach, like you saw in that video, that are along the beach. So it kind of fits the natural curvature of that area. I think that it being a place where Miami Beach wants them there and is willing to work with them, they can provide an experience where everything is a little bit more encased in that area of Miami Beach, so people can stay close by. They can train close by. They don't really have to like catch Ubers all over the place. Parking's not that big of an issue. And it's right next to Miami's Muscle Beach, where they're going to be.
Oh, cool.
Is like 6th and 10th. I want to say, 6th to 10th Street is right next to Miami Muscle Beach. So it's like the vibe is there too. And where they're at on Ocean Drive is like half of it has been blocked off. So it's just for pedestrians and biking.
Oh, cool.
So you're talking about like walkability and getting around and just like the environment, like the atmosphere there for hosting an event. Seems like it's going to be an upgrade.
Yeah, my feeling always just from having been there, and I haven't been there as many times as you have. But great event, great competition, fantastic environment. But I always felt like they were almost trying to do too much. Like they were sort of redlining that competition a little bit and a little bit beyond. And if they were going to stay at Bayfront, maybe the best move would be to contract a little bit so you didn't have the problems with seating and it didn't feel so crowded. But now it seems like this move is going to help alleviate some of that, which I think is good. And it's just nice to inject some new life into something with a new venue. You know, Rogue has done this with going from Columbus, 3 years in Columbus. And then they had the remote event, and then they did, 3 years in Round Rock, and now they're going overseas. Like, I think that feels like you need to refresh the venue a little bit every now and then, although it's a little tougher because it's a Miami thing.
For sure. And sometimes you can be a victim of your own success, right? Like Wodapalooza really became, I would say, really it was the first really big spectator friendly or spectator oriented event for the off season and high level competition. So, and what I say by that is like you had events like ECC, East Coast Championships, which is no longer in operation. That was huge because you had a really dense format of like top athletes competing. But it was in the Northeast, and it wasn't this huge sprawling spectator type event, community event. You had the OC Throwdown for a little while, which obviously had some very big issues with safety and some poor programming choices. And while it was starting to get bigger, I think they tried to do too much too fast in getting bigger. I competed at that event one year, and I was there when, the Ogar accident happened. The Wodapalooza really developed as this community first oriented event. So it wasn't just about the elite competition. There were all these different divisions coming, and everyone was kind of celebrating fitness there, to take a term directly from them. And then the elite competition started to grow with it.
Yeah.
So you already had this like foundation of like, Miami's a destination. People want to go there. You have all these divisions competing. There's really a place for everyone to compete. And once the elite divisions took off with like the teams of 3, it started to get attention of like, ooh, this is like this really kind of cool event. All right, how do we top next year? How do we make it bigger and better next year? How do we go more and really fit into this like Miami, like glitz glam kind of atmosphere? And at some point, when you keep kind of pushing in that direction, you have to pull from others. And I think they, like you said, they were redlining.
Yeah.
And ultimately, some aspects of the spectator experience, some aspects of the athlete experience started to have some issues and some snags. And I hope that really moving to Miami Beach and maybe having a footprint that's doesn't require them to like set up these crazy scaffolding over a fountain just to be able to get people in, allows them to put more creative energy and focus into other aspects that can kind of bring back to that community vibe. Which is great. And like Miami Beach is super cool. It's a destination. It's a place that a lot of people want to go to anyways. And it's in the same area enough so that there's some familiarity in terms of planning, but it's new enough to where it's like, you're going to be staying in new places. You get the new experience, you get a new backdrop, a new scenery, and you're not going to the same restaurants and everything, all just from the people that have been there multiple years. So yeah, I think this could be a big win for them, and something that's probably needed for sure, especially in this space with the temperature of things. Like,
agreed.
Starting to refresh some stuff, I think is helpful.
Score update: top of the 9th, Dodgers still lead 7-6. They have 2 men on with 1 out, first and second. Who's up?
Is that Edmund up? Edmund's such a stud.
Is that Freeman? That is Edmund. You're right.
That guy's such a stud.
Just updating you on that. Okay, next thing. Speaking of off-season competitions, Rogue Invitational obviously is less than a week away. And it is likely that James Sprague, who's on the barbell spin, James Sprague has pneumonia. And you talked to him, right, about this?
Well, I reached out to him because I saw, obviously there was some word getting around, and he posted some Instagram updates. I believe one from the hospital involving some lungs, and he posted one in particular about like 4 out of 5 lobes are working, which is like, anytime you see that from an elite athlete and they've got the oxygen tubes in their nose, you're like, what the heck is happening? Yeah. So, and rightfully so. He's taking some time off of social media. So hopefully he's good to go. And it's just a hiccup at this point. Like, Rogue competing at that event is secondary, and making sure pneumonia is not something to be trifled with.
No, unfortunately, I had an old guy, a college roommate of mine, a good friend of mine, passed away a while back and it was because of complications from it. So it's not, you're right. It's not a joke.
For sure. And so obviously wishing him the best, man. And hopefully he's back in full swing soon. Yeah.
Because, I think that one thing everyone was looking forward to, and still looking forward to the field that's going to be competing there defending CrossFit Games champion is now going to be facing some guys that he did not face at the games, namely guys like Jeff Adler.
And
everybody kind of wanted to see how that was going to play out. Maybe we still might, but again, wishing James speedy recovery and health is the most important thing. Would love to see him compete if he's 100%. If not, definitely take it off and get healthy for next season. Okay, next thing, and we'll spend a little time on this one, but this was another social media post that turned a few heads, and it was a co-post between Will Morad and an entity that is calling itself the World Fitness Project. And all it is it's just a white logo on a black background, and the caption is just an arrow with soon, and it is branded as a sports league. So this is not shocking to me that these things are starting to pop up right now. I think anybody who has any sort of aspirations of starting some sort of competitive functional fitness league is eyeing this time right now as the time to do it because of what's going on with CrossFit. We still do not have any sort of results or any sense of what the direction is going to be in 2025, other than that there's going to be a season. But, we're going to find out more. We've reached out to Will Morad, who said he will say more at a later date.
Yep.
But I guarantee, I'm not going to say guarantee, but I think I can say with a pretty high degree of confidence, given the conversations I've been privy to and the people I've spoken to, that this is not the last one of these that's going to spring up here in the next few months.
Yeah, no, I think it's possible there might be a few darts thrown at the board to see what sticks, which is probably needed at this point, right? Like if you're trying to keep something like this alive, really put out a few options and see if anyone really is able to kind of recreate some of the magic or put together a formula that really works. Because, we still don't know what's going on with CrossFit.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on with the investigation. We haven't heard anything back. No updates, despite reaching out. And let's be honest, even some aspects of the formal legal details, I'll say that, are still unknown. So, the full coroner's report has been withheld, right?
Mm-hmm.
The full medical examiner's case for Lazar is still pending. So, no, it's not uncommon for them to do that, in the event of, legal proceedings and investigations being had. But like there, with so many question marks in the air, ultimately there are people that are going to be like, you know what, I'm just not waiting anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop being reactive and be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is a realistic opportunity, and you could argue that there's never been a better time for something like this to pop up than now.
I'm just interested as to why. So, does Will Morad have? I'm guessing he's got some kind of he's involved in this because he either has financial backing or he is closely tied to it. Or
well, one, he's an athlete. He's a very intelligent athlete.
Yeah.
I think he has been involved at a multitude of levels, and without trying to read the tea leaves a little bit, obviously the people that were co-posted with that one was Ryan Husband, who is the founder of LRX, the apparel company.
Okay.
And then there was another person who some people may not know, Jackson, who's involved. There are connections there that would be able to provide potential financial backing.
Okay.
I know that in a very real way, with people that are passionate about this sport and also passionate about just spreading fitness and health and wellness across the board. I've been fortunate to spend time with Jackson and his family in Kauai at the Ultimate Hawaiian Trail Run, where they've been big advocates, at least the years that I've been there, for the Keala Foundation, for helping the kids and everything that mission is for. And I know that life of service, if you put it that way, is probably the best way to put it, is something that they're very focused on.
Yeah.
And so I think naturally for them, having connections to potentially provide funding would be important. And I think that's supremely beneficial.
Well, I think, and like I said, this ain't going to be the last one of these that pops up. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I think competition is ultimately a good thing. It makes everybody better and makes you make your product better. But I don't know if the ecosystem can support two. I think it's got to be one. Like if there's going to be a competitor, everyone's got to rally around, like, because CrossFit's already there. Now you got, and we obviously don't even know what World Fitness Project is going to be.
Yeah.
But I think there's some other people, all right, Yankees on their last two outs. There's other people who are eyeing this. And the biggest barrier to entry here is that you have got to find financial backing, not only people with deep pockets, but people with deep pockets who are willing to, wait this out. Cause it's not like you're going to see a huge immediate return on whatever initial investment you're going to make. This is going to take some time, and it's pretty high risk as well. So I don't know, but this is absolutely the time for people to do this. And like you said, I think you put it really well. People are not, they're done sort of reacting, and now they're going to be proactive with this. And there's been, there were conversations about different season structures and ways to do things even before everything happened with the games. Yeah. Because of just the ever-changing landscape and ever-changing season that is CrossFit. I think people were looking for ways to make it less virtual, more in person.
And some predictability in terms of like what the calendar looks like. and what is going to be required of the athletes in order to compete at the highest level.
Right.
And that comes down to whether it's online, in person, how many stages, what's going to be the qualifying factors for each stage, all of that. And it's been this constant like state of flux for the last, it'll be almost 6 years. It's been 6 years.
And I think a larger conversation too, and I think we've touched on this before in the past, is the sport needs to decide what it's going to be. Is it going to be, a professional sport with professional athletes that you focus on, the best in the world, and that's who we're watching compete on a regular basis? Or is this going to continue to be a community event that tries to throw as wide a net as possible every year, starting with the Open, and try to be as inclusive as possible until you ultimately get to semifinals and games? And I don't know, it's like, I don't know if you can be in the middle anymore. It's like, you're either going to be something that's community based. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be, because the sport has just changed over the last 10 years.
Yeah. What I think, if you're going to try and be able to do a little bit of both, I just think you have to be very, very clear about where the dividing lines are. And in the past, because the sport has constantly been in this, like, as I mentioned, a state of flux or shifting. Oh,
down to the last out.
You're ahead of me. Yep. There we go.
Bueller.
Anyone who pitched 2 games ago?
Doesn't matter. Let's close this thing out.
He's a savage.
Sorry.
So to get back to the point, I think because the sport was always shifting and growing and developing, you could afford to blur those lines a little bit, right? You could pump the Open, maybe be like, we're trying to get some quarterfinals and more people involved, semifinals, or even like, even if it goes the other direction, when they made it harder to get to semifinals, or which were formerly regionals, that was the case, and it was going both directions. But I think really what people just want now is really clear communication, really clear guidelines around what is going to be expected. Hey, what is the focus here? And the Open, if they're going to do something like an Open, anyone can participate, but this is going to be your only chance. And after that, it is cutthroat, and we are getting to the elite stuff. And that's going to be the highlight.
Tyler Watkins made a really good point about this. And he said something that when I thought about it, I'm like, that's exactly right. Like, if you think back 10, 12, 11 years ago, there were all of us, Dodgers win! Dodgers win! Dodgers win! Dodgers are the World Series champions! They finally did it in a 162-game season.
Let me be the first to congratulate you, Sean, as a Los Angeles Dodgers fan, for the World Series.
There we go.
Taking down the evil empire of the Yankees.
Yeah, one evil empire took down the other evil empire. I don't care, man. That's awesome. All right. Anyway, Tyler said, you think back 10, 11 years ago, and we all thought, I could be that guy. I could be that, I could be in the games maybe. There was this sense that we were all kind of coming from the same pool, Now, whether that was delusional or not, which it probably was delusional, there was still that feel that this was all, like, all of us were in this together. We all had a chance. That is far from the case now. And I think that's that's where we're at. It's like, the sport has just changed so much that those old days of, we're all on the starting line, while you can do the Open, you can say that. No one really believes that anymore.
Yeah, and to take that a step further, I think that belief, like, hey, that I maybe can make it, probably went out with the I would say it's even further. I would say it was more maybe like 2010, 2011, and parts of 2012. But by the time 2012 came along and you saw what was required, the 2012 games particularly, I think that idea started to float out the window, and there was a focus shift. It went from, maybe that could be me. It was, all right, let me go to regionals.
Yes.
Maybe that could be me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, now let me go to teams at regionals. Maybe that could be me. Okay, maybe just an elite division at a local event. That could be me.
Yep.
Like, it's this, because realistically, by 2015, very few people that weren't already like decent multi-year regional athletes were thinking like, I can go there, unless it was someone that was coming from an extensive sport background and maybe had some belief in their art and in some genetic potential that they already had. But,
and even the guys this year who were rookies, and I think like Austin Hatfield was one, and Jack Rosema, those guys, they, like you said, they had been around forever. It wasn't like they just came out of nowhere and made the games like you would see back then. But
Yeah.
I think like, it's just, let's decide what we're doing here. And I think there is a spot. I think there is a place for, and maybe this is where CrossFit nets out. If some other competitor, and this is way down the road here, there's a lot that needs to be figured out. But if some other competitor league kind of figures out how to do this thing for the elite, I think there is a spot for doing like a mass participation event like the Open and maybe some stages beyond that could be purely online. And it's just a totally community-driven event. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think people would actually like that. Like we've talked about before. I like the 5-week Open. It felt like that was my competition. Like this is the only, and 3 weeks for me, it's like, it's over. It's not much to kind of savor and get ready for. And like after week 4, you're like, oh man, I don't know if there's that cool feeling of I've kind of put myself through the ringer these past 3 weeks, repeating all these workouts. I don't know if I can get up for it. And then you do like that. There was like a win in that. And I missed that 5-week Open. So maybe, I don't know. I think there are ways where both can survive. I just don't think they can be the same thing anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but like we started the conversation, World Fitness Project is a sports league.
At least that's what it's listed as. That's what it's listed as.
Hopefully we'll get more details on that in the coming weeks. And I know there are others out there that conversations have been had. Like they've gone to, beyond just conversation. So that's what we know, but it'll be interesting to keep an eye on as CrossFit tries to figure itself out here over the next, month, because we're approaching, would it be December is when we would usually get a rule book and we would start to get open dates.
Yep. Open dates usually come around Thanksgiving, maybe a little bit before.
Yeah. So that's going to be here before you know it.
Yeah. There'd be announcements about that. And we're still getting drug test updates from games results right now. I don't think we missed a few of them.
Yeah, we did. So there was Edel, he was the 40 to 44-year-old competitor.
Yep.
And that was one where he was
the champion.
Yeah.
He won the 40.
And I'm 44. A big believer in, innocent until proven guilty. But that was a guy who you looked at and you're like, man, this dude is a beast. And so when I read that, when I read about it, I was like, oh, that doesn't unfortunately shock me.
Yeah. He didn't appeal, received the 4-year sanction. I mean, he had, I always miss this one, anastrozole, some exogenous steroids and metabolites of GW1, Endurobol. So it was like there was multiple things and a few of them that you don't just ingest by happenstance.
Yeah. So there was that one and there was the other one, and you brought up some interesting points about this. It was Sean Ramirez, who has already served a 4-year suspension, came back, and then tested positive again for the same thing, correct?
I thought it was.
It was not.
I thought,
okay.
Because there was some confusion around some stuff that had been announced and pushed on articles and things like that, and had to be clarified with like, hey, this is from 2018. But initially I saw some people spouting like, oh, it's the same thing that he tested for in the past, which brings in mind a famous case with the UFC, John Jones in particular. There's a great episode on it from Jeff Nowitzki, who's known as the Golden Snitch from the UFC, who did a lot of work with helping clean up the sport during a point in time where pretty much all the top athletes were dirty and they were trying to clean it up, and you were having just these monsters. Talking about the way that, and I always botch the name of it, but a way that someone can test for this positive for the same substance twice, despite not ingesting it more than once, or whatever the original thing they popped for. So there are certain compounds that somehow get stored in fat cells. I don't know if that means they're fat cell soluble or not, but essentially some of it gets stored in fat cells. And at any time there is increases or decreases in weight in drastic form, similar to like what UFC fighters do for cutting weight, or what can happen when athletes get into really heavy training sessions or training cycles for peaks and valleys in a sport where those exist. Traces of the compound that or the banned substance that have been stored in fat cells for a long time, that suddenly that fat gets metabolized, can re-release that, and you can test positive for it again. I can't remember the exact name of what he called it, but almost like this fluttering of it. And it's possible that you have like a double jeopardy scenario. right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you basically take a substance, you test positive, you get banned. You sit on the couch for a little while, it gets stored. You decide you fulfill your ban. You come back, you start training again. That stuff gets metabolized, or the fat gets burned, and you retest positive for it again. So that was ultimately with John Jones's case.
Mm-hmm.
that happened with him, where he
Did he
tested
prove
positive
it?
again. I believe they did.
Okay.
And that was one of the main things. I mean, obviously at the time, John had a few other things that he was dealing with, as you would call off the field issues. But all that to say, that's something that is very real for some people. It was not the case for Sean. It was a different substance.
That's just too bad, man. Like at this point, and I'm sorry, I think
he's
like
appealing.
He is. Well, I mean, okay.
It would have to be at this point, any appeal would have to be a tainted supplement,
right? Which
that
he
you
would have to
reasonably
prove. Yeah, which is to the best of my knowledge, only one person's been able to do that successfully, and still, and that was the Richard Bolkin. He still got banned.
There's been a few that have since been able
That's
to.
The one that I always remember, because he was the first, and it was a well documented case. That's right, because there was a couple. I'm forgetting her name.
Kelly Holm did one. Kelly Holm was able to. Laurie Kuna was able to.
That's her. Yeah.
I'm going through. Let's see, and none of the current athletes, I don't think.
Anyway, look, I'm the big, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, we can't get fooled again, guy.
Thank you, W, for that one.
No, really, like you only get 1 second chance.
Yeah.
And I've had, Sean's always been nice to me. I had a great interaction with him at the games, but this is now twice. So is it another 4-year ban and then
it's potentially more.
Is it
could be lifetime.
I honestly think it should be more. You only get 1 second chance.
Yep.
Because you serve your time. All right, clean slate. Forgive, don't forget. And it's just, especially because there are a lot of masters athletes who are doing this the right way, and there were, in like in Edel's case, kept someone off the podium.
Yeah,
kept someone from winning.
Sean. Both of them kept someone off the podium.
So
Ivan Kukartsev had his sanction down to a 2 year. So that's from semifinals this year, which typically they only reduce that due to a tainted supplement. So.
Okay. Those are the two that we needed to update, right? I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, before we move on to our next segment, which is hearing from Mitch Hooper, we want to thank our other sponsor for today, and that is Creatures of Habit, the best overnight oats that you are ever going to eat. These things are absolutely fantastic. They have fantastic ingredients in them. 30 grams of protein. It takes you, if you watch Tommy's video on social media, less than a minute to prepare these things for the next day. They're plant-based. They have probiotics and prebiotics and omega-3 healthy fats. This is like a little power-packed meal in an envelope that you just rip open, pour into a container, add water, shove it in the fridge. You're ready to go the next morning for breakfast, or you can have it as a snack. The stuff is absolutely fantastic. They have really good flavors. They got like the maple flavor. They have banana and peanut butter that's really good. They have a strawberry and walnut one. But if you're someone who likes to make your meals like on the go and you're rushed for time, this is absolutely what you want to get. Creatures of Habit. That's Creatures of Habit with a K, creaturesofhabit.com. Our code is TEF, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. You will save 20% off of your order. I love this stuff. I eat it every day. It's like my afternoon carb snack.
Yep.
And it's fantastic. And it's like I pack my lunch the night before, I pack all my food, and it's like such a relief when I get to that, because it's so easy to fix. It's literally pour the thing in, water, stir, done.
And it's balanced. There's like balanced macronutrients, and there's plenty of micronutrients. You're getting a bunch of good nutrition in you with very little effort. Let's be honest. And for all of my Fairlife crew out there, you throw some Fairlife milk in there so you don't have to worry about the lactose.
Yeah.
Throws another 13 grams of protein in there.
Dress it up. Put some strawberries on there.
Yep. Bumps it up to 40 plus grams of protein that you can have in pretty much a minute. You don't have to worry about, and it's super easy to eat. It's delicious. For me, I love either oatmeal in the morning, overnight oats in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
or as a pre-workout snack. Cause typically for me, it's like, it just, I can eat it within the hour and still go and work out and feel like I have plenty of fuel. So
I was always like a warm oatmeal guy until I tried this stuff. And now I'm starting to come around to like been in the fridge. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. creaturesofhabit.com. The code is TEF. You will save 20% on your order. Check them out. They're fantastic people that make a really good product, and we're glad that they are on board. Okay. And by we, I mean Tommy and Lauren, sat down to speak with Mitch Hooper, who is the defending Rogue Invitational champion, strongman athlete who has, I think, really started to revolutionize or at least change the way that strongmen train, the way they, sort of view that sport as a business. Like, he's really revolutionized a lot of stuff, and he's been really successful at it. Fantastic competitor, great guy. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, Tommy, Lauren, and I had a chance to sit down with him informally, just have a smoothie and an acai bowl with him during Wodapalooza SoCal. Could not have been nicer. Really enjoyed his company and enjoyed picking his brain about the strongman and the business of it. And he is going to be in Aberdeen, Scotland, trying to defend his Rogue Invitational title against a loaded field. So Tommy and Lauren sat down with him, talked about his athletic background, how he got into strongman, because he's got a pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Diverse athletic background.
Eclectic.
Yes, eclectic, diverse. He's run a marathon. He's played hockey. I think he's done like long driving and golf. He's an athlete. How he approaches the sport and the programming at the Rogue Invitational and how it plays into his skill set. So here is Tommy and Lauren's conversation with defending Rogue Invitational strongman champion, Mitch Hooper.
And now we want to welcome into our show one of the most decorated strongman, Mitch Hooper. You have so many titles on the heels of the Rogue Invitational, World's Strongest Man on Earth, last year's Rogue Invitational champion, and Arnold Strongman Classic champ. We are so excited to catch up before you get to head across the country, and Tommy and I are very jealous.
Yeah, no, it's wild to be in the conversation of most decorated, but it's becoming accurate. I'm only a few years in now, and I've been fortunate enough to have every single title that I've ever competed for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I it feels like, and you mentioned it, that like you exploded onto the scene suddenly, like 2022. You started doing your first international like pro events, and then before long you were just winning everything. Whether is it like a sport background, mindset, what do you attribute like that immediate success for? Because it's very uncommon.
Well, I think immediate is how it's perceived from the outside, but it wasn't as immediate as it seems. So just to take you through a little bit of my athletic history, growing up, I played rep hockey for 10 years, as every Canadian boy does. But in that time, I also played rep baseball. I did swimming. I played golf at a really high level, and that was my first professional foray or potential professional foray. I played rugby, track and field, American football, everything. And that during that entire time, I loved to lift heavy. And after American football, I then lost a bunch of weight, did a bodybuilding show. I then did marathons. Then I went into strength sports. But the whole time, my primary interest and the only thing that I'd always loved was going to the gym and training heavy. And so whilst I started Strongman in around 2019 and I made World's Strongest Man in 2022, I probably started my consistent, regular heavy lifting somewhere around 2011.
So that's a big background of a lot of different sports. And I think when you look at high level athletes, the ones that do really excel are those who have a dynamic athletic background. But is there one of them that you can point to that started piquing your interest to maybe dabble with strongman, or at what point did you make that switch and go all in?
So the reason that I started after university, I graduated my undergraduate in human kinetics. I got a great job with a professional basketball team, and I thought that was going to be my career path. Then when I found out it wasn't, we had lost in the semifinals or something, and I realized that there was no net positive to the world if my team wins or the other team wins or whatever. So I decided to go to the exercise medicine space, moved to Australia, and I wanted to help people with chronic conditions, injuries, unique circumstances, whatever it is. And when I made that decision, I'd always been healthy-ish. I'd always been moving. I'd always been active. And I thought there's no way for me to relate to anybody if I've never tried to do what I'm going to tell them to do. And so that's why I just have felt the obligation to take everything to the extreme. And that started as losing weight. And my first thing was a bodybuilding show. I was horrible. I came 11th out of 12, but I got in shape, in bodybuilding shape. And it's not an easy thing to do. After that, I pushed my aerobic fitness, and that's why I ran marathons. And the next thing was just pushing my strength. And strongman happened really serendipitously for me. I went to a powerlifting gym. Some guys in there did strongman. I won the national powerlifting title over in Australia. It got pretty boring pretty fast, and these guys sort of goaded me into trying strongman. From there, I did 4 local shows, and after 4 local shows, I got a really political and undeserved on merit invite to World's Strongest Man, but I certainly made the most of the opportunity. But to be honest, when I was moving back from Australia to Canada is when I got that invite. But my plan was to give up strongman and to go into triathlons, because I was also opening a business, an exercise medicine business in my hometown. And World's Strongest Man happened, and I came 8th there. Since I came 8th at World's Strongest Man, I'm on 20, I believe it's 21 or 22 consecutive podiums. And I didn't win in my first 4 shows, but after that, I've won the last 13 of 18, I believe.
I mean, talk about a tipping point, right? World's Strongest Man, it's like the alternative is triathlons, which I think for the average person, it feels like complete opposite ends of the spectrum. But once you do hit that tipping point in World's Strongest Man, what is the change there from someone that they see show up at a big competition that takes 8th to, all right, this is the switch, I have to dial it up, and now this is going to look a little bit different from a professional standpoint?
Yeah, I held off a long time, longer than you would imagine, before I said that this is going to be something that I commit to as a career. And frankly, how much am I even committing to it as a career right now? Like I still have my contingency plans and the other things that I do, and the social media and the businesses, and but I came 8th at World's Strongest Man, and my business partner for my clinic up here in Barrie, he said one of our obvious concerns has to be that your strongman career takes off. And I told him, like, look, that is not going to happen. Like, I did well at one show. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Then I came 3rd at a Giants Live at Royal Albert Hall in London, and that's the qualifying tour for World's Strongest Man. So I was really, really happy with that. Then I came 3rd at the next show, the next Giants Live show, but their reputation as being a little bit lighter, a little bit faster. And at that stage, there was major questions for me around, like, is he actually strong, or does he just do well in lighter moving events? After that Giants Live, a week later, I went to the Shaw Classic. I came 2nd at that Giants Live. The week after, I went to the Shaw Classic, which is the heaviest, hardest show in the world. If you win that show, you're a badass. Everyone knows World's Strongest Man and thinks that that's our pinnacle. To me, it's the strongest man on earth. That show tries to kill you. It tries to break you down. It is horrendous in a beautiful way. I had a 1-week turnaround from Giants Live to that show. And at that show, one of the guys came up to me, and he said, just so you know, next to nobody believes that you're actually strong and that this has any legs. This is the show that you can prove it. And he's talking about fans, not the other guys. And at that show, I came 3rd. After I came 3rd there, I started being fortunate enough to win some competitions. And I didn't see it in myself that I could be the best in the world after I won the Arnold, after I won the World's Strongest Man. Not until I won my 2nd Arnold did I go, okay, this is legit, and I got some pretty special things to chase now.
Did you have a follow-up, Tommy?
I was just going to say, but like, even saying that, like, you start to win some of the biggest competitions on the planet for the sport, and then it still took some time for you to really kind of like mentally flip that switch or acknowledge it. And what do you attribute that to? Was that just your own skepticism? Is it you always, you mentioned you have contingency plans. Is that just a part of who you are?
It honestly just all still feels too good to be true. I'm 6'3". I'm not 6'8". I'm 320 pounds. I'm not 450 pounds. You don't look at me and just go, that is the best strength athlete in the world. And I see that as well. I stand beside the guys and I look at Thor, I look at Tom Stolman, I'm looking up at them as I'm staring at their chests. And I'm like, surely I can't be stronger than these dudes. Surely I can't be better. Maybe I've just tactically figured out how to do well in a few shows, but it's hard to believe. It's also just hard to believe that you could go and your fifth ever strongman show is World's Strongest Man and you make the finals, and you're less than 10 shows deep, and now you're being considered one of the top 3 in the world. It really felt too good to be true. And I think since I didn't have the goal as a child to be the world's strongest man, I felt like I didn't yearn for it. I didn't need that to complete my journey of being as strong as I could be. And so I didn't get ahead of myself, and I didn't convince myself of anything that didn't have really sound evidence behind it. And, it happened faster than I was able to emotionally digest it. For example, I was driving down to World's Strongest Man in 2023, and I was driving down with my assistants. And logically, I thought that I was going to win the show. I sort of went through the events and the guys who were in contention. I thought, like, it's likely that I'm going to win. But driving down to the contest was the first time that I actually thought, like, what would it feel like to call yourself the world's strongest man? I never even contemplated it before, maybe 2 or 3 days before winning the show. And so I think my priorities are that strongman is up there, but it's certainly not number one. My family is first. Who I am as a person is first, is tied for first, I suppose. The health of everyone who I care about. And then strongman is a great sport that's changed my life and helped so many people. But I just didn't have that thing where I needed to claim that I was the best in the world, or that I needed to commit everything to it. And there's financial realities to when you start to commit to these things. It's not dissimilar to CrossFit, where in strongman, if you win every single show, you make around 600,000 US for the year, which is amazing. If you come 5th in every show, you make $50,000 for the year, which is hardly a livable wage. And so even as someone as consistent, as successful as myself, you would be a bit naive to think that you could ride this wave forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And kind of speaking to that, you look at athletes, specifically yourself, something that I love or have loved watching is your journey on Instagram and this balance of being a strongman with all of these decorated titles and absolutely crushing it on the competition floor. But then we get a dip into your personality and the goofy side of you. What is that balance of being an athlete, but also like knowing in order to make ends meet, you kind of have to be an influencer too?
Yeah, the whole social media thing, I don't want to be famous. I don't want people to know my face. I just recognize that there's no choice. If I want my life to turn out the way I want, and if I want the people who work for me, their life to turn out how they want. And frankly, it's harder for me to bear down and be serious as an athlete than it is for me to mess around and have fun at the gym. All of the stuff that you see on my social media are things that I just think about when we're driving to the gym, or I look at something or someone in the gym and I think that's hilarious. That's perfect. And it's just who I am. I take a lot of pride that if I speak to my wife or my mom, and my wife, by the way, met me just after I finished running marathons. I was 220 pounds. She didn't sign up for any of this, but I speak to them, and I would check in as I was coming up, like, am I representing myself accurately on camera? And the resounding feedback that I get from family and friends is that it's just all me. All the stuff that I say that people might not like, or might be endearing, or might be annoying. It's literally, if you're on my back porch with me for a day, I'm talking about the same stuff in the same way and hanging out. And I just don't have the energy or capacity to pretend to be anything that I'm not. And it comes across authentic because it truly is. It's all stuff that first makes me laugh and makes me entertained, and thankfully other people agree as well.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned something just now that kind of struck me is, your wife met you after running marathons, and she didn't sign up for any of this, but like I just reflecting on that, like the difference and change of your path over that time. And maybe one of the unseen things is, the support system behind you, or what goes into accompanying you in that journey. What is there anything you can share about that? I mean, whether it's from your wife's standpoint and having to see, her husband go from running 26.2 miles to lifting, I don't know, 26.2 thousand pounds over the course of a competition.
Yeah, I think in strongman in particular, you don't find anyone at the top who's consistent who doesn't have a stable wife or girlfriend. It just doesn't happen. And I think the number of people who I see that they have to debate with their wife or negotiate when they go to the gym or what competitions they might go to or whatever. I've never once, and we're on the same page, but I've never once felt like I have to ask permission to go train or to go to a show or anything. And I think it's just an innate understanding that I have our family's best interest at heart. And she didn't sign up for strongman, but you don't need to speak to me for very long to know that my life will not be conventional, and I won't accept it being conventional. I didn't know how unconventional it would be, but having a strong person by your side is so useful in so many different ways. You know, when you're coming up in the sport, it's difficult, it's a grind, and you don't know how far you're going to make it. And there are times where you have to make the choice, especially in strongman. You make the choice to say, okay, I'm going to do what it takes to be a professional, be one of the best in the world, and you're making choices that they're not good for your health. It's not good to be obese. It's not good to have a higher body fat percentage. It's not good to put your blood pressure through that in an acute sense when you're training. It's not good to give yourself indigestion because you're so heavy and have to eat so much like you guys are hearing. But you know, having people who understand what it's all for and support you along the way and are just as excited for you, then that's great. And you know, one of the best things that Strongman has given to me is that if you don't see my family with me at a competition, which you won't in Scotland, it's because they're all on my mom's back porch, all together, all watching the show. And I can help my family to get together multiple times. You know, most families have Christmas and Thanksgiving, and like that's when they might get together. And we have Christmas, Thanksgiving, World's Strongest Man, the Rogue Invitational, Strongest Man on Earth, the Arnold, on and on and on. And our family has just gotten so much closer because of that. And my social circle has frankly shrunk because of that, because you just don't know who has your best interest. But once you find those people, then life becomes really good. And I think one of the secrets to me being so consistent is I have everything in context. When I lost World's Strongest Man this year, it's the only show that I've lost in the last 9. But I didn't have any sort of emotional negative feelings towards it because I did everything I could. My family was still happy. They all still love me. They all still supported me. We go home and we have a beautiful family, a healthy family, a beautiful home. Like, how could you be upset about your situation at the moment? And so I just don't carry that pressure with me into competition. I expect myself to win the Rogue Invitational, but if I don't, I know that it's okay.
Yeah.
What does your family think about your career path and just like all of the ebbs and flows that eventually led you to dipping full into strongman? Like, is this something that maybe they predicted was going to happen versus like you thinking it was going to be reality before it actually was?
Yeah. Well, funny, when I was about 20 years old and when I was pursuing running, my best friend at the time and training partner, I didn't know much of anything about strongman. I might have been able to tell you that I knew who Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall, Hathor Bjornsson was, but that's probably it. He told me, you have to do strongman. It is a waste for you not to do strongman. I spoke to my girlfriend at the time, and she was like, oh, I don't want you to have to do certain things. I don't want to have to get heavy, and I just don't like the idea. So I just scrapped it 5 years before I actually started it. But you know, when I first started speaking as though I could be one of the best in the world and I could be one of the strongest, my mom, who is an eternal supporter of mine, had a healthy level of skepticism of like, come on, dude, like surely. But at the same time, you know, growing up and all of my decisions that I had made as an adult, I had such a strong feeling, as I think many men do, that like I just needed a period of my life where I was out making it on my own with no support. And that's a large reason why I went all the way over to Australia. I didn't know anyone. All I had was an address for a place I was renting and a start date for school, and that was it. And I've conditioned my mom to sort of go like, whatever he decides, Mitch is going to be okay. Yeah, he figures it out somehow. In fact, it's sort of a running joke in my family that somehow I just make everything work for me, and it seems to turn out fine, regardless of decisions. And and they're calculated and they're educated guesses on what might be a good opportunity. But I've been really fortunate in my life that more things have worked out than not, and I think they just accepted that. Hopefully, this is an extension of that.
Well, I mean, it certainly worked out so far. But speaking to the perception of strongman as a whole, you mentioned, earlier in the interview, from the outside looking in, what is it that do you think that the average person gets wrong about strongman, or doesn't understand what goes into the product that they see stepping out onto the floor, say, in a couple weeks in Scotland?
Yes, it's a good question. I think that the number one misunderstanding is in who the people are who participate in strongman, particularly at the top level. The average person who gets involved in strongman, who makes it to World's Strongest Man, may have played a sport or two in the past, but ultimately they were just looking for a way to express their strength and to improve themselves and to lift weights by themselves. And the product of having people who lift weight by themselves, and that's their primary interest, is that you get a lot of really big tattooed guys who are frankly a little bit more on the shy side than you would expect. And so you might see these hulking guys who have no interest in speaking to you and think that they're in some way trying to be intimidating or trying to be, or they might be a bit aggressive or something. It's genuinely the nicest group, the softest, gentlest group of guys you can imagine, from top to bottom for the most part. So I think that would be the biggest misunderstanding. But I think the number one thing that CrossFit fans and people listening to this podcast wouldn't know off the bat is that we cannot be told events on the hop. We can't just have a surprise event thrown in and expect us to do anything, because we operate so close to our tissue tolerances in all of the movements that if you just told us max deadlift is an event, we would all herniate discs and blow out our spines. It would be impossible. And so we know all of our events. We prepare specifically for every one of our events, and say deadlift is the easiest example. We have a max deadlift at Rogue. We know that 8 weeks in advance. And so for 8 weeks, week after week, you're slowly building up your capacity to then you basically know what you're going to do on the day. And we know that for all of our events. And so we are hyper specifically trained for exactly what we're doing. But for anyone who's followed the Rogue for any period of time or followed Strongman, you know that those events are always different. They are never the same. There are hundreds of different things that we may be asked to do in different ways. But we're always told, prepared, and scale into that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. As soon as you said that, it made sense, because I think we're on the CrossFit side. We are so conditioned to just wait and see, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's bad. But I guess at the same time, if you really want to see, athletes such as yourself, find the limit and push the envelope of that, you kind of have to give them that runway.
Yeah, we had a funny one in 2022. They gave us 5 of 6 events and said the 6th one is going to be an overhead surprise. And there was revolt. We're like, no, we cannot have surprise. Surprise does not exist for us. And so we only had, I think, 3 or 4 weeks to prepare for the SEER dumbbell ladder, which was the same thing they did the year before. But I think it's hard even for organizers of Rogue to understand that, yes, I might be physically capable of launching 280 over my head with one hand any day of the week. Yes, any day of the year. But is my rotator cuff prepared for that? Am I coordinated enough to not throw it in the slightly wrong spot that's going to tear my labrum? So on and so forth. So it's very, very different in that respect to CrossFit, which is I think there's a level of appreciation that CrossFit should have for strongman in that way. But there's also a massive level of appreciation that I have for how insane it is to just be prepared for anything that's thrown at the CrossFitters.
Have you ever been to Scotland before?
Yeah, I was in Scotland. I got back 5 days ago.
Oh, really?
So you were just there and now you're home for 2 weeks and then going right back.
Yeah.
Was that just show prep, getting acclimated, trying to doing some recon?
No. There was a Giants Live World Tour Finals that's held in Scotland every year.
Okay.
And so I was off competing there. But look, and that's where I say I can't even tell you that I'm fully committing to strongman right now, because if I were, I would be hyper fixated, hyper focused on training. But right before that Scotland show, I was in Mexico for business. Then I went to Vegas for the Olympia. I went to Denver for a beer event with Sam Adams. I was home for 2 days and went off and competed sick. And it's just making the most of life. And that's really my largest paranoia, is that I'm not religious in any way. I'm not spiritual in any way. So I believe we have a certain amount of time on the earth to make an impact. And it terrifies me to not have made the impact that I hope to by the time I die.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that your approach and like the way you just laid things out is a bit of a paradigm shift in the sport? I think anytime you have turnover in terms of the elite athletes or the household names in any sport, there can be either a culture shift or a paradigm shift in terms of how they approach the sport, how they approach professionalism, careers, things like that. And I think, we had a brief convo, down in SoCal over an acai bowl. And I think you kind of touched on that a little bit. And I'm curious if you could kind of maybe dig into that or highlight that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm different to a lot of strongman athletes, and I'm different largely because I came up so fast. I came up partially in COVID. I never had the time to be indoctrinated in what everyone else does. So when I rock up at World's Strongest Man and guys are incessantly jumping between the hot tub and the cold bath and back and forth, and I'm just sitting in the hot tub because that feels way nicer and I enjoy that. And I sort of see what they do on the back end, and I look at how much food they believe they need to eat and how heavy they believe they need to be. But then you'll see guys like really bulk up for say the Rogue Invitational. Well, every single event at Rogue, apart from one, is a medley that involves moving of some sort. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to be super heavy. And since we have so many events that are moving related, your competency and coordination in something like running should be really high. So I've been running every day in my prep for the Rogue Invitational, and running is something that no strongman before me ever would have done. But we are seeing a culture shift where more guys are sort of looking at me. They're sort of catching that these are the things that I'm doing. I'm clearly recovering better than anyone. I'm more consistent than anyone. I have more wins than anyone. And it's not because I'm Thor. It's not because I'm 6'9". There's clearly something that I'm doing that's attributing to my performance. And I think it's those things. And part of it is maintaining a reasonable level of aerobic fitness, which is reasonable in the context of strongman, but is admittedly still poor. It is taking all of these extra recovery things that CrossFitters do as well, diving into the research and knowing that the vast majority of them are a complete waste of time. And for me, it boils down to three things. It's managing life stress, managing sleep, and managing nutrition. And if you can get those three things right, then like if a massage feels good to you, then great, go do it. And I do that sometimes. And if acupuncture, if you like that, that's fine. But recognize that all of those things are total accessories to your ability to perform well. In fact, managing life stress and having a million quote unquote recovery appointments are actually juxtaposed to each other, and probably works against it. There's a really good culture shift happening in swimming right now that I think is a useful parallel. I'm sure you guys knew swimmers growing up who they're off at practice at 5 a.m. and swim in the pool for 3 hours and then go back to the pool in the evening. Well, the vast majority of elite swim programs now don't have kids swimming in the morning, because the sleep that they're going to get is going to mean that their session in the evening is going to be twice as productive. And that's a parallel to my approach as well. What can I do to be most productive for my training within the confines and the constraints of my life, which are not small, between business and baby and family. But I get a few things right. I apply that really well, and that fuels me to be better than anyone more times than not.
Yeah.
Do you think that will actually lead to a shift in other future competitors to know what is possible? Because I'm sure right now, or historically, there's been a stereotype of what they think a strong man or strong woman looks like and how they perform and what their background is. But you're kind of going against the grain. Do you think we'll see a shift with more athletes coming up with more diverse backgrounds like that?
I hope so. I really hope so. But the answer is I don't know. I know I'm making an impact at the grassroots level, and I know it'll make people, it'll improve people. But there's a large faction of people right now who just call me an alien. And if that's the route that you go, and you just say Mitch is an alien, then it almost diminishes any effort that I've put towards becoming as good as I have been, which I firmly believe is replicable and other people could do it as well. And I don't hide anything. I post a YouTube video every single day telling everyone everything I'm doing. If you want to copy me, I encourage that because I do want the sport to move forward. So time will tell, but I think it's going to be hard for people not to recognize that the ability to be agile, to move, to be coordinated with your hands, coordinated with your feet, all of those things are eternally helpful in being a good strongman.
And we've touched a lot on the physical aspects of it, and you mentioned some of the recovery things, but what else is involved? So say comp prep specifically, because we have one of the big four coming up. Is there anything outside of the physical aspect that you do to get ready for a show that you have seen, that you've been able to filter out some of maybe the BS and show that this helps?
Yeah, more often than not, I have technical improvements when I'm outside of the gym, in the way that I think about events and I think about how I'm doing something and I think about the technique of something, and I have an ability to visualize, but even to a greater extent, I can almost feel what's going to feel better with a certain implement. So whether I like it or not, that stuff is running in the back of my head relentlessly. You say we have a 200-pound kettlebell. We've never had kettlebells before, and for us 200 pounds is not heavy, but just like thinking about how to manage a kettlebell of that weight, get it to one shoulder, press it overhead, conceptually I'll have repped that out 1,000 times before it actually happens on the competition floor. So visualization would be it, but honestly I try to keep my mind off of it more than anything, and that's part of managing life stress. I could hyperfixate and stress about the invitational for the next 2 weeks, or I could go to the pumpkin patch with my daughter and we could celebrate Halloween and my wife's birthday's in a couple of days and celebrate that. That stuff to me is way more important than any sort of mental process, going and seeing a sports psychologist, anything. If I'm happy and I'm in a good headspace, just as a human being, that's when I'm at my best competing. And you'll see the common thread that I don't entertain overcomplication of anything at all when it comes to strongman.
It's paying attention to the whole person versus just the piece of the person that encompasses strongman.
And that's people who coach elite athletes get it wrong way more often than they get it right. If you ask your coach, what's the most important thing, a coach of an elite athlete, what's the most important thing, and they tell you anything about their training methodology or the rep counts or the periodization or whatever, they're totally missing the boat. Because if you're coaching an elite athlete, that person has freaky genetics. They're blessed in some way, and the most important thing is your relationship with your athlete. And with me and my coach, who's doing the commentating for the Invitational, yes, he helps me tremendously with my programming, sure, with knowing the implements, knowing the events. But the number one thing is like just having someone by your side who has your back, who understands your life, who understands your priorities, and supports you in that. To me, that's the most inspiring thing when it comes to me performing at my best.
No doubt.
So looking at the programming for the Rogue Invitational, then you mentioned that there's a 1RM deadlift. Any predictions on what you think you'll be able to pull the day of?
Yeah, I've got a big deadlift session today. I'll probably be able to give you a better answer in 6 hours. But
fair.
It's the thing about strongman is it's not scaled in any way. So the heavy favorite in this event is Thor. He'll pull 1,000 pounds plus for sure. And I believe I'll be capable of near 1,000. And I pulled 966 at Shaw when my back wasn't feeling 100%. I probably had another 20 pounds in me. I was somewhere 980, 990. But it's just going to be 1 pound heavier than the guy who's trying to come second. And that could be Matt Ragg, that could be Bobby Thompson, that could be Evan Singleton. But whoever that dude is, I'm going to be 1 pound heavier than that dude, so that Thor lifts 1,000 pounds and only gains 1 point on me, and that'll put me in really good stead for the rest of the competition.
I like that approach. Looking at the rest of the programming, is there anything that gets you excited to go out there and attack? Like I know you try to do well at all of them, but I think some athletes probably have an event or an implement that you're like, oh, that's cool, or I really want to see where I'm capable here.
Yeah, we'll talk about a few, but the true answer is to be as consistent as I've been. I don't have favorite and least favorite events. They're they're all very, very good events for me, to be honest. But something like the Stone Series, I've done 8 competitions so far this year, but in 5 of those shows, I've won the event before the last. I've won the show before the last event, so I haven't had to do the last event in several shows, which is almost always Atlas Stone. So I haven't been able to show what I can do on stones in a long time. So I'm excited to be able to show that. It's the 3rd event of this competition, so that'll be fun. Anytime a yoke is involved, I love that. So yoke into power stairs is something that we're doing. And the power stairs, they made a really, really smart decision. Normally our power stairs are 18 inches tall. But you can imagine the taller the stair, the higher you have to pull the implement. And then you have this incredibly large disparity in what's demanded of an athlete depending on their height. So guys like Thor and Tom just stand halfway up and place it on. But a guy like me who gives 4 inches to them, I have to actually like try to get my arms involved as well. And so at 12-inch steps, it's truly just going to be who is the best, most efficient, and fastest. I think that's going to be a great event. The overhead medley, where we have the kettlebell to sear dumbbell to axle to a heavier axle. I set the world record in axle press. A lot of guys are going to struggle on that last one, and I think that'll be a great finish to the show. We're all putting an exclamation mark, hopefully on a victory, but on my performance nonetheless, where I think one of the coolest things in strength is not necessarily when someone lifts way more than anyone ever has. I think the coolest thing is seeing someone struggle and seeing the next guy make it look easy. And I can virtually guarantee that I'll have an easy looking results on that last event.
Why do you think that is? Like you mentioned like, seeing someone struggle and seeing someone make it look easy. Is it just by sheer like contrast, or is it like actual perspective for the people at home to realize like, oh, it's not just something you can throw around? Like, what makes that special in your mind?
I think it's just giving the perspective. I think seeing one of the strongest humans on the planet not be able to budge something and the next guy just walk up and lift it like it's nothing, it really shows the levels to the game. And in our lives, we appreciate strength most, not really when we have an object that's just on the limit of human capacity and can you shift it or can you move it? No, it's I can't move my fridge 1 inch. Can you help me? And the biggest, strongest guy comes, lifts it off the ground, turns around and places it. That's the stuff that I think really gets people excited. And so for me, that's how it translates over.
So since you were just in Scotland, you have already been able to get a taste of what that community, what the crowd is going to be like. Can you give us any predictions of what we can expect to see from the crowd at Rogue this year?
CrossFitters put on notice that Scotland is the land of strongman. And in Texas, there was a large CrossFit crowd and they entertained us, and that's great. But it's going to be time that they're going to find out that we have a whole sport, a whole world that exists outside of them. And they are rabid. They are so loud, so energetic, so engaged. The sound at shows over in the UK as a whole is absolutely out of this world. I'll tell you a story about the Royal Albert Hall. So this year I broke the axle press, cleaner press world record. I did 218 kilos, which is 482 pounds. And I did that at the Royal Albert Hall, which is a few blocks away from Buckingham Palace. And this venue was, of course, built for Prince Albert. It's been around for a very, very long time. It's had every artist you can imagine go through there, many, many different events. When I pressed that axle, it broke the all-time record for noise in that venue, amplified or unamplified. And of course, it was unamplified. And so it's the loudest that venue has ever been in history. And you're going to see some similar passion, similar excitements up in Aberdeen.
Oh, I just got goosebumps. That's so
dude,
cool.
Seriously, that's unreal. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's now double the jealousy that neither of us gets to be there in person. But oh man.
And Royal Albert Hall, I'm just looking it up now. The construction date was it was finished in 1871. So 153 years. That single moment of strongman was the loudest in 153 years.
You have to add that to your resume, Mitch.
Seriously, that's gotta be on the resume.
That's your PR.
For sure.
Yeah.
I say, I've won I've been fortunate enough to win every single title I've competed for, every big title in the sport. I'm the only one to win all 4 major titles in strongman in history. But that single moment at Royal Albert Hall is that's the highlight of my career, because every show you sort of win slowly. You find out that you're winning and you just hold on. But to have a moment that you either get it or don't get it, and things going absolutely ballistic, that is absolutely at the top.
Oh man, that's just electric. One thing that just popped in my head is the frequency of competing. You mentioned a few times, popping around to different events and even going pretty much back to back at some point. For most of us uninitiated, what is the frequency that you think you can reasonably compete at a high level for shows around, like, in a calendar year?
Strongman is you can only peak a few times a year, and if you know why, you know why. If you don't worry about it. But I would say you can truly peak twice a year, and for me, that twice a year is World's Strongest Man and the Strongest Man on Earth. Now, at the Rogue Invitational, I won't be peaked, as in my peak strength won't be as high as it is all year round, but it doesn't have to be, because this show is so medley based and fitness based that I don't need to be as strong as I've ever been. Whereas something like Strongest Man on Earth or the Arnold, you have to be extremely well physically prepared. Now, saying that you can only be peaked twice a year doesn't mean to me that you can only be good twice a year. So, like I said, I've competed 8 times so far this year. I've won 7 of those shows and come second in the one that I didn't win. And a lot of the second tier shows, I'm fortunate enough that I can go treat them as a training session and win them more often than not. And since our weights are predetermined in more events than they're not, I can do, for example, I can do a deadlift, 800-pound axle deadlift for reps, and I can see what everyone else has done. And I can, for example, this past weekend, everyone else had done, the best they done was 5. I did 6. I probably could do a set of 10. So 6 for me is not that big of a deal. It's not overly difficult. And so that over and over and over, I think so long as you're training hard, you can compete very regularly. Culturally in strongman, I think there's a tendency to have a big show, take 3 weeks off, sort of reintroduce yourself to weights, and it will create these big undulations. But one of the biggest things in approach that would set me different from the rest of guys is that I don't prefer to compete. I prefer to go into the gym. I prefer to kick my own ass. I prefer to work really hard. That's why that's why I love it. That's what I love the most. And so that for me is that's the underpinning of everything I do. And since it is, I'm always in pretty good shape, and I always can perform pretty well, even if I'm not particularly peaked for a competition.
I think that's so interesting, because I from my perspective, I feel like the majority of athletes, and maybe I'm just thinking of CrossFitters, prefer to be in person competing. And maybe it's because there are less opportunities to do so. But do you feel like you're the norm for strongman when it comes to preferring to train by yourself in the normal routine versus being on a stage?
No way. I think a lot of guys like to compete, and there's no problem with this is not a knock on anybody. There's no problem with wanting to be famous. There's no problem with wanting to be recognized for your accomplishments and wanting to have fans. It's not that I don't want to have fans and I don't want to be recognized, but that's just not important to me fundamentally as a human being. I love inspiring people. I love that people can listen to me, and that's why I put such an effort to put a good message out there and to put so much content out there. But never did I ever desire to be famous or want to be famous. There was a time in my life when I struggled to have a one-on-one conversation with a stranger, never mind speak to a crowd or a group of people or be hired for speaking events or anything like that. So yeah, I think I'm very unique in that regard. And I think because the outcome that I want is to be the strongest version of myself. And I don't care if I prove that in a competition or at the gym. Of course, financially, I'd much rather prefer it in a competition. But my ultimate goal is to objectively improve myself, not to collect trophies. And it's created a difficult thing for me now, where I have every trophy that's possible to win. And I don't really care about winning trophies twice. I don't care about being the best of all time. I will not feel incomplete if people don't see me as the best of all time, because that's just some external person's opinion who I've never met. And that just doesn't matter to me. But I absolutely love to train. I love hanging out with the guys. I love competing. I hate to lose. And so all of those things then tend towards, well, we keep kicking on. We keep having the best results that we can. But I think there's I like to think that I don't have much ego about what I do. I don't really have much vanity about what I do. I just see myself as someone who lifts weights, and I have so much respect for people who work normal 9 to 5 jobs, because if I was an accountant, I'd be fired in a heartbeat. If I had a boss or a normal workspace, I would struggle mightily, I believe. And so for people to look at me and go, you thrive so much in this particular area, I'm just fortunate that thousands of people see me do my job well, when there are many, many, many jobs that I wouldn't do well. And so I don't think I'm better than anyone just because I lift weights. And so for me, then it becomes strange for people to sort of like get really excited and fawn over you and think that you're the best thing that's ever happened, when internally, I just don't feel that way. I feel like a normal guy who does my best to support my family, and hopefully I inspire people to do the same thing.
No doubt. And you mentioned that last piece that, inspire others to do the same thing. Can you touch on that? Is there anything else that you feel like at this point in your career, you hope to have a lasting impact, whether outside of the fact of, just trying to, win competitions and being labeled as the best, whether it's for the sport of strongman or human movement in general?
Yeah. Well, I put a video out after I won the Strongest Man on Earth, and I was having that sort of difficult consideration in my head of like, what is the point of continuing when I've won everything that I can? And it's because my goal is to be the greatest strongman of all time, but I don't see greatness as the most number of competitions. I see greatness as the most positive impact. And so I don't care if it's strongman or it's CrossFit or it's marathon running or whatever, so long as someone's inspired that they can go out there and do things. Because I have won World's Strongest Man. I have also run a marathon. So you can't just tell me that I'm genetically gifted to do both of those things, because they're juxtaposed. And I hope people can hear that story and go, well, if I just commit to something, then I could do something pretty special as well. And I hope what people see in me, and when I talk about, I'm the best in the world, but my goal is just to be the best version of myself. And if someone comes along and beats me and I'm continuing to improve them, I'm happy. I think other people should really take that on board, because too many want to look around and say, what am I ranked in the world, and how much better can I get, and can I turn pro, and can I do this? Well, what if you're just not genetically capable of turning pro? Why can you not be proud of snatching 135? And that's an incredible accomplishment that for you, maybe you never would have done without the hard work. And I think people taking pride in the process and in taking care of their own health, taking care of their own movements, and by proxy, then being able to take care of their loved ones, that's the stuff that people should be really excited about. Now, I hope that I'm remembered more, to be honest, for my clothing brand, for my athletic accomplishments. And unfortunately, my athletic accomplishments are getting so out of control that it's going to be a tall hill to climb. But the Lift Heavy Be Kind clothing brand, I started that so that people can see people like me and like you guys who are comfortable and confident in gyms and go like, actually, those are people who are, by and large, really good people who are willing to help me out. And it is a welcoming space. And it's not a declaration of who I am, because I can be an asshole just like everyone else can be, but it's a declaration of who I think everyone should strive to be. Someone who works hard, someone who does their best to be good to other people. And frankly, at the gym, whether it's a CrossFit gym or commercial gym, strongman gym, it's the only time that you're going to have any sort of substantial interaction with strangers on a day-to-day basis, where you actually have a conversation with someone who you've never met before. And that's, to me, what the most special part about fitness is. You cannot tell me one other place that you speak to a stranger at length about something other than their job to help you. You might give someone the finger when you're driving the car, but like that's the second most stranger interaction you have next to the fitness community. And it's just such a special thing to be a part of. And I feel privileged to be a small part of it.
Well, Mitch, thank you so much for coming on the show. You spread these great messages. You're a great human, also an incredible athlete. We can't wait to see everything that you do at the Rogue Invitational, and keep spreading your fun content for us, because we're enjoying it.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Big thanks to Mitch Hooper for joining Tommy and Lauren for that conversation. I love watching that guy compete, because he just does things in competition where you can tell that he's thought through the whole thing. He has a plan. I think it was there was an event, I think it's the Arnold Strongman Classic, where it was like a stone throw. Mm-hmm. And he actually took a shoe and went out and like marked on the track where he wanted to throw. No one else made like any sort of like visual representation of where they wanted to stop on the runway to throw the stone. And it's like little things like that. Doesn't seem like a lot, but he does that kind of stuff. He's really cerebral.
Yeah. and this was apparent. I consider it a very serendipitous meeting. I'd met him before. Had a beer with him at Wodapalooza years and years past with, Brent and Pat kind of discussing the event after it was over. But this was the first time I really got to sit down and chat with him at Waza SoCal. Like you said, we were grabbing acai bowls, and he was like, "Well, come on, sit down. Let's have a chat." Like, he knew who you were. He knew about our show, and because we had discussed having him on. But he was like, "Yeah, let's chat." And from the outset, you can always, maybe it's a champion's mindset. Maybe it's the common thread amongst people who are very successful in their sport. But it's pretty apparent right away when you talk with Mitch that he approaches it from a mindset. And there's a level of cerebralness, I guess, if that's the correct term, that's different than other people in a way that elevates him significantly. And that carries over to other parts of his life too. In our conversation that you just listened to, there are points where you're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. And I find usually the most profound things for me when it's someone about how they approach life, how they approach work, professional relationships, whatever it is, and they have clearly found success. The most profound things seem like the most common knowledge, common sense things, but that just haven't quite hit you yet. They're the ones who are like, oh yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Why haven't I thought of that? Almost kind of thing. And it's very easy to overlook and poo-poo, if you will. But I find, the two conversations that I've had with Mitch, him, bringing up some really, poignant things, and I really enjoyed chatting with him, and I really enjoy his approach to competing in strongman and how content he seems and complete as a human.
Yeah, I also love his slogan, "Lift heavy, be kind." I think that's pretty cool. Lift heavy, be kind. All right, big thanks to Mitch Hooper. We don't have any community support, do we? Anything we need to get out there?
Don't have
and if anyone does have anything that they want us to get the word out on, please send it to us. You can send it to us either on our Talking Elite Fitness Instagram page. You can send it to our individual Instagram pages. And when you do, please include as many details as possible, because we always like to make sure that we are sending people to the right spot so people can get the help that they need. So I guess we got to move on to PRs and no reps.
Yes.
Oof. We just have to get right away. Let's just PR Tiff.
Every week.
Kings just scored a goal too. My sports night's going really well. They're at 5-1. Power play too. My goodness.
I'll PR Freddie Freeman.
MVP. He should be the MVP.
Six consecutive World Series games, including 4 in a row to start, and a walk-off Grand Slam game winner in Game 1. PR to him for sure. I'm gonna no rep. Now, I'll be the first to say, it's been a hot minute since I've been to the Olive Garden.
Oh boy.
But I do know, but I would be lying if I didn't say that I knew my way around a never-ending pasta ball or a tour of Italy. Let's just say
that's been like fine dining when you're in college.
Let's just say, from Olive Garden's perspective, I have been to the Amalfi Coast. I have seen Sicily. I've been to the hills of Tuscany. I have taken the tour of Italy. But I just always assumed that it was always bottomless breadsticks, soup, salad. Like that's, and now they like have to confirm that you order an entree. They don't just start bringing them out to you naturally. And you have to choose between soup or salad.
What?
Look, I'm there for business, sir. Yeah, I get it. At Olive Garden, you never eat alone, because when you're there, you're family. Yeah. But wow. I need me some zuppa Toscana. I need some of that.
Just bring it all.
Whatever that magic fairy dust they put on their salads and breadsticks, and keep it coming until my baked ziti gets out of the oven.
Pat, we always just love Pat Sherwood. He said, looks like he enjoys a nice baked ziti. I'm going to get to see Pat next week. I can't wait.
Oh man, yeah, it's been too long.
Yeah, we're going to have him on a reunion show.
Yeah, it kind of caught me off guard, and I was like, "Whoa,
that's disappointing."
What's up with you? Yeah, what?
That's disappointing.
Yeah, but I mean, it was still an enjoyable, lovely dinner.
That's good.
But yeah, I definitely caught me off guard.
Would you define that as fast
This one was not fast. This dinner,
nor was it casual. We were dressed to the nines to enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call it casual based on the black tie affair that our family was having at the Salinas Olive Garden.
You know what? Okay, so I don't have any no reps, but I got to PR. I got to PR your parents. They went to. Did we talk about this before? I don't think we did. They went to the Monterey Bay Aquarium for like some member thing, which it was a Halloween party, which I went to last year. My family were members at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and their costumes were spot on. Like they dressed like two of the Beatles from the Sgt. Pepper days, and they were great. Yeah. And I just love the fact that your parents go and do that stuff. And they had a blast. In fact, I commented on the post. I go, "Will you adopt me?"
Oh man, yeah, they're
just great people. I thought that I love to see them out having a good time. That was awesome.
No doubt. They don't hold back on Halloween time either, and
that's great.
They enjoy going out. I mean, we said when we were back in Madison, like they would come to the games every year, and honestly, half the time I wouldn't even know they're there because they'd be out like playing pool, riding bikes, doing all this stuff. Like
I'll never forget your dad had like a giant pitcher of beer, bringing it over to the pool table. Your mom's like chalking up a cue. I was like, this is awesome. I love these people.
They're very social people. Yeah. I love it.
Good stuff. So that's another PR. You got another one? Right.
I'm going to PR Project Grit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our friends at Project Grit, they have what I can only describe is the best backpack that I've ever used, at least. And it's like they're just starting to scratch the surface. They just released this backpack. It's called the Journeyman bag.
Yeah, thing's awesome.
And it is, and I was talking about this with Lauren too. I've gone through a ton of backpacks. Mm-hmm. We've had some great relationships with people over the years. Krieger Bags makes a great bag. It's what I use for my laptop, business type bag. But we got this Journeyman bag, and it is like everything I could want. I can fit my camera cube insert into it. I can fit my backpack. I can fit multiple days clothing. So much so that when Tiff and I had to pack our go bags to get ready for the hospital, there was no question. This Journeyman bag is it. Mm-hmm. And they sent us there. They have two little accessory bags that come with it. One's called the Apprentice and one's called the Drifter. The Drifter is almost like a adopt kit toiletry bag.
Yeah,
it is. And I was like, oh man, how does this bag get better? And I opened it up, and there was the best toiletry bag that I've ever used in my life too. Mm. And so I've just completely rehauled my travel system, and it's fantastic. And it's so well thought out. The bag is so well thought out. Everything from if you have a gym membership card that you use to swipe into your gym, there's a little lanyard that you can tuck into your bag when you're not using it, but out this way it hangs so you can just scan it. There's like a wedding ring pouch within the top velvet lined container for your valuables. I was just like, ugh, hats off.
I love to see people going the extra mile.
Yeah. It's an awesome bag. And yeah, I anyone who has been in the media space for a little while or traveled a bunch, you kind of become, I don't want to say a bag nerd, but you start liking travel accessories and travel bags and backpacks and stuff like that. And so, this one just knocked my socks off. So
I got to PR my wife. Halloween is here. My son picked he wanted to be a character dressed as something. So she's got it's like a costume around another costume, and she pulled it off, and it's awesome. So
so help me.
It's a character from a show who in the Halloween episode is dressed as something, and that's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be the character dressed as this thing. Oh. So he's got it's like a costume onion.
So like Bluey dressed up for Halloween.
Exactly. Something like that. Yes. And pulled it off. It's fantastic. I love Halloween, man. I had some great times as a kid, and it's just not the same now. So yeah, PR to my wife on that one. You're going to stay at home and hand out candy?
That is such a huge, I don't know. That's one of those skills you don't really know that is so clutch until you use it. Being able to put together Halloween costumes.
Yeah. I would be like, dude, if it was just me, I'd be like, sorry, son, you're out of luck. We're going to Target. We're going to buy one. We're going to figure out.
My mom is a really good seamstress and, has been able to help build Halloween costumes over the years.
Yeah.
It's cheaper and it's just kind of cool because it's homemade.
Yeah.
But,
all right. That's going to do it for today. Next week, we'll be back. We'll have a buy or sell edition for the Rogue Invitational. That'll be released probably early in the week because I'm leaving next Tuesday to go to Scotland. So if you're going to be at the Rogue Invitational, please come say hi. I will probably be holed up in a booth for 10 hours a day starting on Friday. But if you're going to the Legends Happy Hour on Thursday night, I'll be there. So, and my brother's coming too. My brother and his wife, they're going to make a trip over. So that'll be fun. So really looking forward to it. But we'll have full coverage next week of that. We'll get you guys ready for it. And big thanks to Mitch Hooper again. And we'll just continue to monitor the situation that's going on with CrossFit and all the fun things that seem to be surrounding that right now. So that is going to do it for us. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you for watching. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers 2024 World Series champions. Take care of each other. Be better. And we will talk to you guys next time.
Like a kiss at the start of a first date. If it's good, it's good. I don't want to wait. When the feeling's right, I'm taking it.